Boys and all.
Easy now.
You see, you've learnt your lines, mate.
I have.
Welcome back to the Drive Talk podcast. And for us, welcome back to the Podium Paddock, HQ. We haven't been here for 3 episodes.
We haven't, and it's actually really nice being back here. Not that we've not had fun in the various locations, but I feel a lot more relaxed here. There's less noise around us, and we can just chill out.
There's a lot less pressure because the last 3 we've done, hopefully you've watched, listened to them. We had our first guest, we had our first live, and then we had our first guest and live together.
Which was really difficult, wasn't it? And we're slightly hungover as well. So,
so at least it's just us here back in the Drive Talk podcast HQ, Podium Paddock. Wow. So one of the things our challenge is we were trying to keep this particular podcast a bit generic in terms of time, but we do want to talk about a few cool things that we've been up to. But before that, we want to just talk about how things are going with the podcast and give you a bit of an update. Clearly, you won't be listening to this maybe 4 weeks ahead of when we're saying it. So any numbers we quote hopefully will have gone up by then.
Absolutely.
But things are going well.
Yeah. I mean, on the YouTube side, they're going very, very well. Beyond our expectations. We're fast approaching 3,500 subs. And I'm sure, as Pete just said, by the time you watch this, it will be bigger than that. The Tim Schmee video undoubtedly really helped that. In fact, that's on about 46,000 views,
which for a podcast is amazing. For a normal video on my channel that's like 10 to 15 minutes long, I'd be well happy with that. But for an hour-long podcast video is mega.
Yeah, it's actually outperforming my latest YouTube video, which I'm not very happy about. But no, it's amazing. And the numbers in general, I think we've done about 80,000 views in the last month, which is just mind-blowing. So massive thanks to everyone for the support on the YouTube side.
Yeah, for a small, or for the early days of any YouTube channel, or the audio side is going just as well. And we're still in the top 10 Apple Podcasts.
No, first. We're back to first. On Wednesday, we're at first. Yeah, when it reset, we're first. We went from 4th, which we were sitting in for about 2 weeks.
I've been away.
Yeah, well, no, we're top of the charts again, which
That's
is just
nuts.
Unreal as of, a couple of days ago. So, yeah, I mean, that's just unreal. I mean, and that's a genuine now because we've been going a few months. Everything's settled, and we are still ahead of the likes of Top Gear and all the other big podcasts out there in the automotive UK sector. So
that's mega.
Thanks.
But we wanted to just briefly talk about these things, about our microphones, because we've had a few comments. In the Tim interview, quite a lot of comments. I think the challenge with that one is when you're watching it on YouTube, you forget it's a podcast. And right from the get-go, we said we want the audio to be as good as it can be, and we want the video to be as good as it can be. And the way you get great audio is by having really good microphones. And these microphones that we're using, they're really good quality, but they have to be quite close to us, quite close to our mouth, within sort of 4 or 5 inches.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is an example. So I'm talking now, push this away, and you probably can't hear me right at this point.
Yeah.
They're so directional, aren't they?
Yeah. And then, so to get them there, that's what the booms are for. So I know they are a bit intrusive, and obviously they're branded up, but then, we have to fund making this venture somehow, and that's how we're doing it. And then the other comment, we've had a couple of comments just about the top of the microphone blocking a view of our mouths. So if anyone is lip reading, anyone who's got sort of, hard of hearing, then we're going to we've tried to fix that a little bit today.
Yep.
We want to try and take your comments on board as much as possible. But as we mentioned in the comments back to that question, we need to be quite close to these mics. So that's just a bit of housekeeping. We want to make it the best we possibly can be. And wearing something like a lapel mic or recording it on Zoom ain't cutting it for us. It's just not good enough.
No. And the subtitles, in fact, I replied to someone who did question that. And I said, obviously there's subtitles on YouTube. And I have to mention my mum. I know she got mentioned a few weeks ago.
Oh, I like your mum.
Yeah. She actually wrote me a very long email because she'd seen my reply in that comment. And she said, actually, Joe, when you do hit the subtitles, and then she gave me a few examples of a sentence of yours or mine. And honestly, mate, it was like Chinese whispers. I mean, the subtitles on YouTube were not the best. So, yeah, once again, we are going to try and improve this and do the best we can. But as Ped said, the whole premise of this is quality, and it is a podcast after all. So we're trying to make the sound quality as good as possible.
I'm not being funny. If you look at the video version of any decent podcast out there, whether that's Joe Rogan or whoever it might be, they've got a mic and a mic stand like this. Is pretty standard fare, to be honest.
Yep, absolutely.
So, although we're time shifting this a little bit, we've been up to some cool things. So, first thing I've turned up today in my Porsche because, a couple of things. One, it passed its MOT yesterday, which is sad times. Well, good, it passed its MOT, but that means it's 3 years old. It also means it's out of warranty, so I can modify it now.
Modifying's great.
Yeah,
it doesn't get you an end. Like, honestly,
I'm not going to modify my Porsche. Don't worry. But yeah, I'm on the way home. I'm going to get the alignment done because anyway, it needs doing. And you've turned up in a very nice yellow base 911 Porsche.
I have. Yeah,
with the coolest number plate A911. Where did you get that from?
Well, I just I picked it up off Auto Trader yesterday, and with our podcast ad revenue,
Yeah.
No, Pat and I actually just picked it up from Porsche GB, which is down the road from here, because we're heading off to Le Mans, 100 years of Le Mans, and it also just happens to be 75 years of Porsche, so we're trying to put some kind of a story together there. And it is sitting very nicely on some PS4Ss, which are fairly freshly homologated for the 992 generation 911. And I've seen that you've also got some lovely fresh PS4Ss on yours.
I have indeed, which is why I need my alignment done, because when I got them fitted, the garage that fitted them, they had a laser alignment pay, but you can't get on it with a really low front of the car.
Yep.
So I'm going somewhere else to get the alignment done. It's not out, but I just want to make sure it's perfect. So.
Sure.
But transform the car.
Nice.
Absolutely transform the car.
I'll quiz you actually something about that 911. So it's a base, and I love this. I love the idea of this, and I know Rob's done it for a few generations and a few cars over the years. That's a base 992 911 Carrera 2. It has one option, which is a reversing camera, but that's like 500 quid or something. Guess how much a base 911 is now?
I'm going to go in at 85 to 90 grand, maybe 85 probably.
If I'd asked you that question about 4 months ago, you would have been pretty much bang on the nose. But it is now, without that reversing camera, 97,800.
What?
Yeah, for a base. I mean, don't get me wrong, I laugh. It's still probably the best sports car on sale today. But inflation of prices is just, I mean, it's gone up 10% in the last 3 or 4 months, which is scary. But a lot of money.
Wow. It doesn't seem that long ago that a Turbo S was like 100 grand.
No, I remember. Yeah, exactly. I think the 997.2 Turbo S was about 100 grand. And I know that is going back a few years, but yeah, inflation, it's real. But at least I guess with a Porsche of any sort of guys, they're going to hold value. So you're going to be relatively safe with that. It's not going to depreciate like a, I don't know, 7 Series or something.
Yeah. Wow, that's blimey. Well, so you're off to Le Mans. I'm not going to Le Mans. I think I'm going to Rome instead.
Don't honestly, don't get too emotional or sad, mate, because why are you going to Rome?
I'm having a lovely weekend with Mrs. G. We're going to see a lovely concert, and I'm very much excited about it. I'm very looking forward to it.
Good.
So yeah, that's all good.
Yes.
It's all good. Tracy, if you're listening. No, seriously, I am. But I have just come back from Ireland. I've been on a drive tour in Ireland. And I just wanted to mention it really. I've never been to Ireland outside of the big cities. I've been to Dublin a lot. I've been to Cork a couple of times. But Ireland as a country, wow. I mean, we're blessed with beautiful weather at the moment. We had 6 days of driving. I was lent an Aston Martin Vantage Roadster by Aston Martin, and I never actually drove it with the roof up.
Wow.
So my review isn't a complete one because I can't tell you whether it's noisy or not with the roof up because I literally had it down the whole time. But what a car. Super impressed with it as a car.
That trip, it looked incredible. And if you told me that was in the Alps in August or something, I would have believed you. And just we were looking at some of your clips off camera earlier on. It looks stunning out there. And I know Ireland's a beautiful, beautiful country. But I mean, some of the roads, it looked like you're on alpine passes and just looked beautiful. And the weather, it's like, really? Were you definitely in Ireland?
We were. But an interesting subject. So we had 9 supercars and a sport vehicle. Everywhere we went, we shut the place down. You'd park them in a car park. There'd be swarms of people coming out. And we very quickly realised that in Ireland, you just don't see cars like that because the taxes to have one of those cars on the road, unreal. One of the guys we were talking to, there's lots of car spotters out there, but they're bigly into their kind of JDM modified Japanese stuff because they can't afford to put supercars on the road. Someone was looking at putting a V10 R8 on the road in Ireland, and the taxes to get it on the road, 40 grand.
Wow.
Before you even pay for the car. It's like, wow. It was unreal. So it was an amazing place. I mean, some of the roads are a bit bumpy. They have a lot of subsidence because the roads are built on, especially the roads in the mountains, are built on peat bogs. So you'll be driving along what you see is a lovely straight, flat bit of tarmac, and then suddenly be the massive Eddie the Eagle jump, and you get loads of air. But it was an amazing place.
Wow.
But I thought we would talk about driving. Now, this is a subject I wanted to talk about. On my channel, I've done some talking about driving standards, but we both kind of wanted to have a chat about driving standards, but in particular, driving standards online.
Yep.
And in particular, driving standards on YouTube.
Yes.
And it's such a big subject. I don't really know where to start with it, but I watch, and we're going to name no names because that's just not appropriate, but I watch some YouTube channels and look at the way that the cars are being driven, and I cringe. I think for a couple of reasons. One, I think sometimes it's just dangerous, and you're putting both the people in the car and also people outside the car at risk, and other motorists and stuff. But the one that makes me cringe the most is you look at it and think, well, you're just going to end up. It's basically you may as well put your hand up and say, I've just been speeding. Look, I've seen people bombing down the road with speedo on display showing 85, 90 miles an hour, and it's just an admission of guilt. But the reason we want to talk about it is this is a subject that's quite close to your heart. Some people who watch your channel or are aware of you might be aware of the subject we're going to talk about, and it's the first time you've really talked about it in public.
Yep.
Unless you're at the I Love You Man, which was at Cafe in the Machine, where you talked about it then, and I've been friends with you for a long time, so I know about it. And we're not going to cover it in too much detail because there are things that things you're comfortable about talking about, things that you aren't, and that's all good. But I think it's important for us to cover the subject, and maybe it's definitely appropriate for content creators that are driving cars quickly on YouTube. But I think it's led into a quite different approach for both of us as to how we drive our cars online, and also brands and other creators as well. So where do we go? Are you going to take us back to?
Yeah, so let's rewind to October or November 2018. So what's that? It's approaching 5 years now. I had an Audi R8 press car, and I was actually at a friend's wedding up near Manchester somewhere. I needed to film a video on it, and we're both familiar with that. We use our press cars for whatever we're doing, and then try and fit in videos around that. And my friend Jordan suggested the Snake Pass. So I thought, oh, never heard of the Snake Pass before. Looked it up on Google Maps. It all looked great. And anyway, went up there, and actually the weather, it was a bit grey and overcast, and I decided not to film a video there because the weather wasn't right, and I thought I'd come home and do it on familiar roads. But what I did decide to do is capture the Snake Pass on a GoPro camera, because it looked lovely and windy and scenic and stuff. So I pulled over right at the start of it, and I put a GoPro camera on the outside of the car, of the R8, looking down the side of the car, and I attached a mic into the engine bay so you could just hear V10 goodness, and it sounded unbelievable. So I drove along this road, and it was a spirited drive, and I'm not going to deny that I didn't go over the speed limit, but it was in the middle of nowhere, and this is not me coming up with excuses. As we say, we've learned a lot. A lot of people have learned from this, but in my head it was like, okay, I'm not in a school zone, I'm not in a 30 zone, I'm out in the middle of nowhere. There was very little traffic around, and I did this reasonably spirited drive, but I wasn't filming it to show speed, because when you watch the clip, if you've driven fast, you watch it and go, it wasn't even fast. And especially if you mute it, that's the interesting one. If you mute that clip and you take away the sound, it looks very normal, but it's when you've got the screaming top a second, like V10. Anyway, so I'd put this clip on my Instagram page, and I think on Facebook, just saying, had a great time on the Snake Pass today, or listen to that V10 soundtrack or whatever. Didn't think anything of it. Then came down, filmed the video, maybe the next day or whatever, and whatever. Less than 2 weeks later, because it has to be, Audi UK got what are the letters you get for speeding?
I know. Yeah.
Basically,
who was driving this car?
Who was driving? Yeah, I forget the name of the paper. Who was driving this car? Because obviously it was registered there. And they contacted me and said, well, you're the only person in the insurance, so we're going to forward it to you. Absolutely, yeah, no problem. And it arrived, and it was, I think it said something like unmanned equipment, speeding, and was it reckless or careless driving on this post? So I was like, well, what's that all about? Firstly, I don't remember seeing any vans or any static cameras or anything along there. And secondly, well, yes, maybe I was going a little bit over the 50 limit, but I wasn't reckless driving.
You weren't like coming out fully lit sideways or doing donuts or anything.
No, certainly not. And that was one of the first sort of supercars I'd driven, so I definitely wasn't pushing it that hard on the public road. But anyway, long story short, I replied saying, yes, it was me, but I wasn't doing I wasn't excessively speeding, and I wasn't reckless driving. A few months went on then after that, so 3 or 4 months, I think. It could have even been nearly 5 months. I think they've got 6-month period where they've then got back. And in my head, I'd completely forgotten about it.
The letter always comes back 5 months and 3 weeks.
Exactly.
Normally.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And by that point, I mean, I remember the day the letter came, because it was a letter. It was 93 pages. And I still can't figure out to the day how they got it through my postbox, but I do remember when I got home, I'd been away on a press trip, and I opened the door, and it was like there was something behind the door. I thought, oh, that's odd. Pushed it, and there was this massive envelope with 93-page document in there. And so I've opened it up, and they have literally gone to town with me. They've got one of the biggest, best experts in the country who deals with road traffic incidents. Again, I'd found out after this that this guy is only pulled out for mass pile-ups on motorways where there's fatalities and massive big cases. So most of the initial experts or legal people I showed, but as soon as they saw this guy's name on the documents, they were just like, I'm sorry, man, like, it's not even worth us getting involved. They're after you. So anyway, read through the thing. The first half of the booklet was about the speeding itself. They'd used the camera clip on the outside of the car and various landmarks. They'd measured the landmarks of the snake boss, and they'd measured the frames of the camera.
Because the thing to say as well, that shot, that was an external GoPro. There was no internal dashboard or anything. You couldn't see the speedo at all. I've seen it. It's just like rear three-quarter wing shot down the front of the car.
Exactly. I mean, you can Google it and see it, but it's rear three, as you say, yeah, exactly that. There's nothing of the speedo. There's actually nothing of me. You can't see it's me. You can't see the registration of the car, obviously. So there's very little connecting it to there. But I guess because I'd said, obviously, it was me on the Instagram post. And so, yeah, so the first half of the booklet was basically going in fine detail as to how fast I was going in this particular section and that particular section. Bear in mind, this clip was 15, 20 seconds long, but they'd done a detail thing of that, which turned out to be, I wouldn't say very wrong, but pretty wrong, as in the speed that they come up with. And there was 2 reasons for that. Number one, I had sped it up slightly. And number two, the way they'd worked it out was just incorrect. But that took months and a lot of money to correct from my end, because it's not just a case of me going, oh, wait, that's not what you've got to then get. You've got to get your own lawyer involved, then you've got to get your own expert involved. So you're paying thousands and thousands just to defend yourself. But anyway, so that was the first bit. The second bit of that document was basically them painting a really bad picture of me so that the CPS would essentially sign it off, accusing me of jumping the R8 on the Snake Pass, which was categorically not even close to the truth. And in fact, Pat, who's here and part of our podcast, Pat was involved in that jump. And in fact, it was you that filmed it, wasn't it? So a couple of days after that, I filmed a video with Auto Trader, Greg and Patrick, on the what was it called? I think it might even be called the Long Shot, not Long Cross.
Yeah.
So Long Cross Studios, where a lot of old school videos that you and I would have watched with Sutcliffe sliding cars and stuff. It's a bit like Millbrook. It's not there anymore. They've just got rid of it for filming studios and stuff. But there's a really cool bit of road there. And there's a bit where you can jump a car if it's powerful enough and it's got enough traction out the corner, which the R8 Quattro had. It was perfect. So we were filming a completely separate video on completely private land. And I posted on my Instagram about that. And I actually said in the description, it's still on my Instagram account, this was clearly filmed on private land. But they'd used that clip, their expert, who apparently, is the best in the country, had used that particular clip. And basically the second half of this entire booklet was made up of me jumping the R8 on a specific part of the Snake Pass. So you can imagine the picture. Not only is it, this guy's speeding. If they'd just done that, there'd be questions as to, okay, well, he's speeding, but why are we going to investigate this further? Why are we going to pump money into it? But suddenly, no, Mr. Achilles has been jumping an R8 along Snake Pass, which off memory would be impossible because there's nowhere that's jumpable,
You're in like a bloodhound or something.
Exactly, yeah. Or a motocross bike or something. You went off-road. But so they painted this really bad picture of me, which obviously got a lot of eyebrows rising and caused this sort of massive investigation. But I mean, that's all kind of by the by. I one day I'd hope to get to the bottom of why I was targeted so much, and there was a lot of fairy tales in that whole story that Derbyshire Police came up with, including in the courtroom itself. But thankfully, the judge could see through a lot of it. And he certainly didn't take pity on me because there was still an element of speeding involved. And in fact, in the courtroom, in the end, I was done at an average speed of 65.9 miles an hour in a 50 zone.
That's not what I read in the papers, mate. You were doing like over 100 miles an hour in a supercar. I read that in like the Telegraph or something.
It was everywhere. I made it to the 10 o'clock BBC News, and this always, from that point onwards, I've always thought, well, you can never believe what you see or hear or read in papers or on the news, because they really went to town on me with that after it had left the court. And as you say, everyone exaggerates. We all exaggerate. But it turned from initially being accused of doing an average or maximum speed of 93, which was completely incorrect, to then basically, all the papers got hold of it, and it was at over 100 miles an hour, reckless driving, and all this. But that was all proved to be completely wrong. And as I say, in the end, I got 6 points because, unfortunately, at 15 miles an hour over, you can get 3 or 6. And because it had dragged out for so long, and because I had a clean license, and I'd had a clean license for 10 years, the judge was like, look, he basically said, if I give you 6 points, will that affect your job? And it wouldn't, because 6 points is the maximum you can have with various press cars and stuff, and my chauffeuring job at the time. But I mean, that's kind of the story in a nutshell. But as we're going to talk about today, I put my hands up. I did go over the speed limit, and I'm not proud of it. It wasn't in a built up or dangerous area. And this is something I talk about personally on my channel all the time, especially built up areas. Never ever speed in them. They're 20 or 30 or 40 zones for a reason.
Yep.
But it taught me a massive lesson about filming and spirited driving on camera. Even if it's not even worth trying to hide if you're going over the speed limit. In my head now, if I know subconsciously that I'm doing 60 on a 60, then I'm fine. I don't care where the cameras are. Do you know what I mean? And I know you're super careful with all that sort of thing as well. But it taught me a massive lesson. And I know from talking to a lot of proper journos that we've looked up to for years, I know it's taught them and a lot of the other industry a lesson in terms of what you can put online and what you can't put online, because it's not a case of putting your speedo on there and just, it isn't. They will, if they want to catch you, they'll catch you other ways. So it's just not worth speeding.
Blurring out a speedo is not.
Blurring out a speedo is not going to do anything. But I think, what we really want to encourage, we all love to do a bit of spirited driving, and there are times and places when you're in the middle of nowhere, whatever, that, you might be able to get up and play around with the speed limit a bit and not go over it, but have some fun on the road where it's safe to do so. But doing it in built up areas especially is just not acceptable. It's not cool, and it's only going to end one way. And I don't understand, personally, when I was younger, yes, I was maybe a bit looser in a car, but I don't understand the attraction of going fast in a built up area. There is no benefits to that.
No. No. I mean, I guess anyone who's done a speed awareness course, and I'm sure most people listening to this have had points on their license from a speed camera or whatever. And you go on a speed awareness course, and I've only ever been on one, and you sit there, and I think, I'll come on to advanced driving in a minute, but I'm an advanced driver, but you still go on a speed awareness course, and you're like, oh wow, so that's how long it takes you to stop from 30 or from 60, or that's what happens if you hit someone at that speed. And you're right, the driving in built-up areas. And it's funny, I mentioned actually when the last time we were together at the bike show, I drove into London, and there's so many 20 mile an hour limits now in London. And I just put the speed limiter on the RS3 press car I had, because then that's it. You can't go over the speed limit, and it's driving at 20 in a built-up area. You feel like you've got the handbrake on.
Yep.
But it's there for a reason, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And in places like London, I actually talked about this recently when I had that RS6 performance, and it's like, it does feel painfully slow, but actually it just means that you're not going to catch the next traffic jam any quicker. So you kind of don't, it's not like you go any slower from point A to point B. You just actually, you're on the move for longer. But I think what I would love to encourage, if this podcast encourages one person online, to not drive recklessly on camera or off camera, doesn't matter. I wish that YouTube was a lot stricter at removing people that clearly do these reckless things on Instagram as well. It's on all socials, isn't it? It's not just, it's everything. And I really despise it. And the problem is, it gets the views. It's very quick and easy to, if I took that 911 out now and I drove as fast as I could from here to London and through London, that would get loads of views, but it's not right, and it shouldn't be happening.
And the problem we've got is, we've mentioned a number of times, we know lots of other car content creators, right? And especially the ones you know or you like, and you see them putting stuff up, and a couple of times all I wanted to do is reach out and go, I really don't think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That bit of content, I think, and that's based on knowing what happened to you, how innocuous that clip that you put up was, and the trauma that it gave you. And I'm going to use the word trauma because, I remember when you were going through that, you were in a bad place. And it took you a long time to come out of that mentally because of and I totally get it. So, unfortunately, you kind of almost come across sounded a bit of a douchebag and a bit self-righteous, or take that down.
Yeah.
But I know one a guy, again, I'm going to name no names, but another YouTuber was filming with a couple of guys. They filmed themselves driving very quickly, and he said, I wouldn't put that online if I were you, and they did, and they both got prosecuted and lost their licenses, and it happens.
Yeah.
But if we talk about driving standards, I wanted to briefly talk about how you can better your driving, because I still find it unbelievable. Maybe this is quite UK specific, but in the UK, hit 17, you can start to learn to drive. Let's say you're quite handy. I mean, I passed my driving test about 3 months after I started learning to drive. You can hold your driving license till you're 70 years old and do nothing else. And then at 70, you just reapply for it. And then I think 75, you have to medical and then reapply. I just think, for me, that's just outrageous. There's
Yes.
no further skill acquiring needed at all.
No.
And you know, I when I was at university, I wanted to drive the student union minibus, and we had to have a driving check basically with an advanced driver, to make sure you were okay driving standards wise. And he said, "Oh, you should do your advanced driving test because you're quite good." Didn't know what that was. Didn't do anything about it until about 2008, and I decided to do my advanced driving through the Institute of Advanced Motorists, which is now IAM Road Smart.
Okay.
And I learned so much doing that. And the thing for me is it's not expensive. You can basically buy an advanced driving pack, which is all of your lessons and your test and your first year subscription membership for less than £200.
Wow.
Because it's all done with voluntary groups. It's not, you know, normal driving lessons, what, £50 an hour probably now, I guess, I don't know.
Yep.
And I learned so much doing that, from not so much techniques, but just observation, planning, positioning on the road, all the things that, you know, reading the road. And then I did a video on it when I became a YouTuber. I don't know whether you do this. Sometimes you think, damn, I haven't got a video next week. I know I'll do a video on advanced driving or whatever the subject is you think. And I just took my car out and went for a drive and talked about doing advanced driving, got loads of traction. Institute of Advanced Motorists saw it, asked me about 2 years ago if I wanted to do what's called the Masters, which is the highest civilian qualification for driving you can get. It's basically you're trained at the same level as a police Class 1 driver.
Yep.
In fact, most of the people who teach Masters, and certainly the guys that are the examiners for Masters, are all ex-police. And it was a fascinating process. There's videos on my channel about it, but you get under the skin of your car. The thing that messed me up is I started it in my Mini Clubman, and then the Clubman got written off, and I bought my Porsche, and then I had to start again basically because I had to learn the car so much.
Yeah.
But that process, and then you do what's called observation. Well, technically they call it spoken thoughts, but it's basically like a commentary drive, and the test's an hour and a half long. But that whole process of doing your Masters, so there's less than 1,000 people in the UK that are on the Masters register.
Wow.
You learn so much about how to drive. They want you to drive spiritedly. You're not allowed to break the speed limit, so your speed limits are still there. But, you know, on the Masters test, you go 1 mile an hour over a speed limit in a built-up area. That's it. You fail.
Sure.
And it was really good. And they do Pass Plus, which is for young drivers. So if you pass your test as a young driver, they've got some training that can help you become a better driver.
Yep.
And I just think that's a thing that more people should take up.
Well, it is 100%. It should be something that is almost car insurers, and I'm sure maybe they do to a certain extent, I don't know, but they should be pushing that. It should almost guarantee that it drops off the £200 that it costs you or something. You know, there should be incentive. But
I think you get a reduction on your insurance.
Okay.
And I one of the reasons I did it, I got an S2000, and I remember my insurance went up to it went up from like £300 to £600 or something. I'm like,
yeah.
And doing the advanced driving knocked it back down quite a lot. But yeah, no, but you could in theory, I guess it's the same with bikes, right? I know we were talking about bikes on the last podcast. You go out, you pass your test if you did your, what's the top one called? You go out and buy an R1 or something, and you could buy anything.
You can, yeah.
Let it die.
Oh no, you put me on the spot now. What is it called? Mod 2?
Yeah,
I think it's called.
Oh, it's changed its name since I last. Yeah. Or you could pass your driving test at 17, and if you could insure it, go out and buy an R8 or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. There's that argument as well, isn't there? It's you know, you could literally, if you had enough money, you could jump into whatever you want, and I mean that's just dangerous in itself, especially with modern EVs that have got 1 million horsepower and 1 million newton meters of torque, and that's available instantly, and it's 3 tons, and you've got someone who's really inexperienced behind the wheel. That's a scary thought in itself. You know, that's like a wrecking ball.
I've got a really good question for you. All right. In terms of learning to drive, do you think there's any point learning to drive in a manual car anymore? Obviously, you know. I'm not dragging the past up. No, I know. And the reason I say it is because I saw a driving school car a couple of weeks ago that was an electric car.
Okay.
So they were electric car driving lessons.
Yeah.
So obviously, I'm presuming it's the same in other countries where people are listening or watching. In the UK, you can do a test in just an automatic car.
Yep.
But then you're only allowed to drive automatic cars. Whereas if you do your test in a manual car, you can drive either.
Yes.
But what's the point in a youngster learning to drive a manual car when the vast majority of new cars are automatic?
Yep.
All electric cars are one gear automatic. There's no point, right?
Yeah, that is a good point. I mean, I hope for the younger generation's sake that they still demand to learn how to drive a manual.
I guess if you're buying like a couple of grand banger, the chances are it's probably a manual. So that's probably a good reason to.
Yeah, but fast forward 10 years when all those small cars are all auto or electric.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, that's quite a scary thought. But yeah, it's just going back to what you were talking about before, the age thing. It's really, so we're having one of our rooms decorated at home, and we've got this lovely guy, Paul, over doing it, and he's turning 69 in a few months, and he's just got himself a motorbike. So I was talking to him yesterday, and he said, it's funny, Joe, like, I had my bike license, got it when I was, really young, which I think actually back then, he's of that age group that actually I think you got it with your car license or something. There was the rules back then. Anyway, he hadn't ridden a motorbike since he was 18. So what's that? 50 years? 50 years. And he picked up this Harley that's like 350 kilos. and he said, I was a bit shaky for a few days. But again, I was just thinking in my head, I mean, he's obviously, he knows what he's doing. But I was just thinking, isn't it mad that in that time, he can just legally go out and just jump on a motorbike? He hasn't ridden for 50 years. And like you said, but aside from the age group thing on car licenses, you can do that with bikes as well. And I think the thing that really bugs me with the UK license, and I'm pretty sure it's still a thing. I don't know. Do you learn how to drive on a motorway here anymore?
No, you don't.
Still not.
So you don't have to drive on a motorway, and you don't have to drive in the dark, and you don't technically have to drive in the rain. Whereas if you go to somewhere like, I think Finland or Sweden, they have that as a compulsory thing. In fact, Finland, you even have to learn to drive on a skid pan.
Wow.
Which, having been to Finland earlier this year, I now understand why.
Yeah.
One of the reasons for the motorway thing, this is a poor excuse, but if you live in Devon and Cornwall, it's a good one. If you live in Cornwall, there are no motorways in Cornwall. So if you had to have a motorway driving element, I mean, you can do dual carriageways, which gives you a lot of similar skills. But no, and I think the problem is that people maybe think that driving is a right that everyone has, and I think it's a privilege.
Yeah.
And I think a retest or a check at 5 or 10 years, I don't think that's too much to ask at all.
No.
Because things move on, road signs and road markings and all that kind of things move on. And doing something like advanced driving, it might not be for everybody. Some people don't have the joy of driving that we have. They just see a car as a get from A to B as a necessity. But, I've always wanted to get better at driving.
Yep.
And doing something like advanced driving. And there are other organisations apart from IAM Road Smart that do it. ROSPA do a similar program. And it's highly recommended.
Yeah.
But the other thing that we've done, so I think, by the way, you need to do your masters or your advanced driving. I'll work on that. I'll get my contacts. We've got a new recruit. But the other thing we've both done is, and this is where you don't have to worry about speed limits and you don't have to worry about is track driving.
Yeah.
So you can go along and do track days, and done many, many track days. But if you want to take it to the next level and actually do some competitive stuff, then you start thinking about your race license.
Yep.
So I thought it'd be cool to talk about race licenses because we've both got ours.
Yeah. I mean, the race, it's funny. I don't know where I sit with the race license thing because I think it's, I didn't learn, apart from flags, I didn't learn anything on my ARDS test really. I think personally, you learn a lot more sitting next to a really good instructor.
Yep.
Who is, but I mean, that's the thing. It's finding a really good instructor. I've had some brilliant ones. I know we both know Jack Layton.
Oh my goodness.
David Pittard, who's
massive shout out to Jack, by the way.
Yeah, Jack, one of the nicest guys. David Pittard, Sean Doyle. There's lots of really good ones, and please feel free to hit me or Ped up in the DMs for any recommendations, because I think you learn a lot from a really, really good driver on track. But I think the ARDS thing does wrap it all up together. But I think my only reservation with ARDS tests is I know a lot of people that have got ARDS tests and genuinely cannot drive, and maybe they've just fluked it or got through it and they've read their I think it's kind of a slight seal of approval, and it teaches you stuff, but at the same time it doesn't mean if you meet someone, they go, "Oh, I've got my ARDS test," then you instantly know that they're not a good driver. That's my opinion. That's my opinion on it.
It is true. So it's a kind of gateway, and I know I've had mine quite a long time now, and the reason I got mine is I had a Caterham.
Yep.
I bought a Caterham, and Goodwood do a spring sprint every Easter bank holiday Monday normally.
Sure.
And in order to do that, you need your race license. So I went and did mine at Silverstone. And I always say if you've not done a huge amount of track driving, so if you've done no track days and stuff, you're going to learn a whole heap, and you're probably going to struggle actually. But if you've done lots of track driving like you have, like you said, the new bits are the kind of the general admin, the flags, all that kind of stuff. But I did mine, and I got to spank a Lotus Exige around Silverstone a lot very quickly, and it was great fun.
Yeah.
But then I went in to do sprints, but it wasn't until a few years later, and actually it was a YouTube thing where I got offered the chance to go and do some racing. Because up until then, I did say I've got my race license. I'm a racing driver.
Of course you did.
Yeah. Obviously.
Yeah.
And I went and did some racing, and I remember now the guy, lovely guy called John. I was asked or offered to drive a Lancia Delta race car at Donington. 500 horsepower Integrale Martini livery, just an awesome thing, absolutely awesome. But the guy who built that and ran the car for the owner, we were chatting, and he said, "Oh, have you ever done any racing?" I'm like, "No." And he said, "Well, why don't you come and race the Clio?" Because Richard, whose car it was, had a Clio 182 that was ready to go in the 750 Motorsport 182 Cup.
Brilliant.
So I went, sounds good. I'd love to do that. And he went, but he said, before you go anywhere near my race car in a race, you're having some lessons.
Yeah.
Right. So I had 2 sessions with a race instructor over 2 days. Well, you get that thing. I thought it was quite good. The first day we were at Donington Park, in one day he took just over 20 seconds off my lap time.
Wow.
It's like,
I was just going to say, did you finally find second gear? But I thought I shouldn't really say that.
Yeah. I was driving around after about 20 minutes, and he said, "Are you expecting a refund on brake pads?" It was like, so I learned a lot in that whole having a driver coach, and those guys like Jack and so on. They are. Mark Hammersley was the guy who taught me, and he was just a lovely guy, amazing driver. But I learned so much in that whole process of driving a car. I remember that I did two days with him, one at Donington, one at Alton Park.
Yeah.
My race was at Donington. And we were at Alton Park, and 2 things struck me from that day. He sent me out he said, "I want you to go out and do 5 laps and come back in again." So I went out, did 5 laps, came back in, and we stopped in the pits. He went, "Right, so how was that? Talk me through it." And I went, "Oh, it was all right, actually. Yeah, I felt a bit better." He went, "No, talk me through it." He wanted corner by corner, gear by gear for the whole 5 laps.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, I don't." He said, "Well, you need to.
You're not focusing enough.
These top drivers are able to process this information and download it to someone."
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever been. I'm sure you probably have. When you in fact, when I had the time with the Lancia Delta, I drove it in the morning. In the afternoon, he had a pro driver coming to do a setup because he didn't have a very good dry setup. And this guy rocked up, and he took it out 2 laps, came in, and he went, "Yeah, it's awful. You want 3 clicks on the front right, 4 clicks on the back right," and he just downloaded all of this setup information.
Yeah.
And then went out and it was unreal.
Wow.
Literally felt the car within a couple of laps.
Yeah.
But yeah, then to continue the story, then you think I'm a racing driver, and then you go and have a race, and then you learn. It's like,
I suppose the racecraft, when you've got, it's all very well doing in one fast lap on your own, but when you've got
even testing, you do a proper test day.
Yeah.
And we got to proper test day, and Mark's like, "It's not a track day, get up the inside of him, because track day you have rules, right?"
Yeah.
Normally, most decent track days, they're overtake on, on invite only.
Yeah.
Not a test day or qualifying. It's like get in there and get stuck in.
Yeah.
And it was good. And then the whole race, the first day, or the first race, you sat on the grid, absolutely, I can't swear on the podcast.
Crapping yourself.
Crapping yourself, yeah. And you go, and I remember we were at Donington, got down to the bottom of Craner Curves, and I'd qualified about 12th, I think. No, hold on, a bit further, about 18th. And there was a crash at the front.
Wow.
And there was all these cars everywhere and dust everywhere. And it was like that scene in Days of Thunder where there's the big crash and he goes head for the smoke and just hope everything's gone by the time we get there. That was me. And it had, thankfully. But yeah, so, that for me is what ARDS, if you're going to, doing the ARDS test is, if you've not done loads of track driving, you'll learn something.
Yeah.
But you need to have a reason for doing it. The other reason for us doing it is at events like Festival of Speed.
Yep.
If you've got your race license, you get opportunities to do cool stuff like drive NASCARs up the hill.
You do, yeah. Yeah, that was one of the coolest things ever. I was going to say I've never been so jealous, but I've never been so proud and almost emotional, actually, watching you last year. I was hanging over the fence when you were going up for one of your runs, and I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever. And I'm not even driving it. It's just watching what you're about to do.
Yeah. Most all my followers have probably seen it. But yeah, I was invited to drive 2012 Jeff Gordon NASCAR up the hill at Festival. It's there again this year. Maybe get to have another go. But
brilliant.
But yeah, so that's but yeah, no, if you, and you can do sprints and auto solos and all those other type of things. They hone your skills. The IM Road Smart do what they call a skills day on a circuit.
Yeah.
Which is a nice step. I think sometimes people think about track days, and track days are quite intimidating. If to go on your first one,
yeah,
they've evolved quite a lot. The first one I ever did, they had like beginners, intermediate, and advanced groups.
Yep.
Now I've not been on a track day that's done that for many years.
I think there still are like track day specific. So the whole day is revolving around beginners. But yeah, it's an interesting thing because I guess it's all very well you and I sitting here talking about track days and ARDS and all the rest of it. And the problem is, as with so many things in life, it's the cost. And I think if we look at the younger generation, hopefully watching and listening as well, you tend to have more speed in your system if you're a petrol head, especially when you're younger. And you get your first car and you want to go and put that, to test. You just do. It's just kind of natural if you're a petrol head. You want that speed. And I think that the best way of getting that speed and also learning, especially the basics of handling for me, and I think for a lot of racing drivers and experienced drivers, is go-karting. Go-karting is just awesome. And even go-karting, it's never been cheap, and it becomes more and more expensive. I spent a lot of time at Daytona, Isha, Sandown Park. They've got D-Max go-karts. Big shout out to those guys. They've got one at Milton Keynes and a couple of other places. They're really, really good. And they get your sensors. They get your idea of car control. I know Patrick, who's here. Patrick's actually a really, really good driver. And
that's because he weighs about the same as one of your legs.
Well, yes. No, but
weight is a big thing in karts.
Weight is a massive thing in karts, but unfortunately, Patrick's extremely good on a simulator as well, which it obviously is not a weight bias thing. But Patrick has learned most of his driving skills as a younger guy on simulators, and then jumped into things like go-karts and then road cars, and he was straight up there. Obviously, there's some differences. But and as we know in this day and age, sims are a massive part of testing for F1 teams and stuff. But I think karting's great. Simulators are also brilliant because it doesn't matter on a sim how fast you go, and it doesn't cost anything if you keep crashing the car, which is
got that reset button. It's great. Isn't it?
Yeah.
One of them in the real world.
Oh, I wish I had one of them a few weeks ago, but in the M2. But yeah, I think in track day, what we also love, I say we, the royal we, I'm talking on my behalf, is when you do a track day, it takes that speed, it gets it out of your system, you have a great day, and then when you get back on the road, you don't feel any need to go really fast because you're kind of like, well, I've just been doing 150 around a corner at Goodwood. Why am I even going to try and get close to that on the road? I'm not going to get anywhere near that, so I'm not going to get that thrill, so there's no point. I would just sit. And again, it's easier for me to say than do because I can afford, I'm lucky to get these opportunities to do that. And I get that younger people especially can't. But the other thing I would recommend is if you want to go and have some good driving, get some fun through your veins, is save up and take your car abroad, take it somewhere like the Alps where there's very don't go there when the Tour de France is on or various other events, and not in July or August, but take it out there and experience these roads that tend to have reasonable speed limits. There's nothing around to hit and damage and hurt apart from yourself, but just enjoy it and enjoy these twisties, because you can't really get that so much in the UK anymore, or Ireland. I'm sure there's lots of other amazing, Scotland to a certain extent, but Scotland's,
Yeah, I mean, the last, I was going to say about the IM Road Smart, they do a skills day, which is like a low cost. It's like a track day. It's always on a track. They do them like Thruxton and stuff.
Yep.
There's a 90-mile-an-hour speed limit, so it's about learning what your car feels like at pace.
Yep.
So you just have an appreciation. Because I think one of the things, the takeaways from the first time I did a track day was you go into a corner and you feel what your car can do, and you realise actually on the public road you're nowhere near the limit of your car.
No.
So there's no point trying to find it.
No.
Because it's just too far. But it's like when people go, oh yeah, Audi's understeer.
Yeah.
Mate, if you're understeering an Audi on the public road, you're going too fast.
Yeah.
Or you're driving like an idiot.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
But it does transfer. But yeah, you're right. When you're abroad and these big sweeping alpine passes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the great thing about this subject is our passion is driving. And for me, it's always about being a better driver and learning more and stuff. And for me, I've been in a car with you and I watch you drive. You're proper handy peddler. And to get that level of skill isn't strapping a GoPro to a car and slamming it through a housing estate with your wheels on fire.
No.
So if you're one of those YouTubers that's doing that, don't.
Yeah, and honestly, stop it now. If you've done it in the past, we've all done silly things.
We do sound self-righteous, but we do with best intentions, I promise you.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, because that's why we talked about my case. It just, out in the open, I've been there, I've done it. I have speeded in the past before as well. Sometimes got caught and sometimes haven't when I was much younger. And that's part of growing up. But if you've done silly things, especially in built-up areas, and you put it on, just stop doing it, because like you touched upon earlier on, that year, let's say 2019, because that's kind of when it all kicked off. I think it was March, April 2019 I had about 9 months of absolute hell. And I mean financial hell, because you have to pay for everything legal-wise. And I wiped out all my savings trying to defend my license. But more so, it was the gut feeling of this hovering over my head for 9 months, where I just could not see the light, and it was a horrible period, and I just don't want anyone to go through that. And I, like yourself, I've reached out to other YouTubers or people online and said, oh mate, you should just take that down. And you feel like you're being a bit of a bell by saying it, but at the same time it's like, no, I'm actually just looking out for them, because I've been through that. And some people will respond straight away and go, oh yeah, I'm really sorry. Others will just go, oh, I don't care, the speedo's not up to you. We've warned you. Just, so let's try and reduce the amount of silly clips that we see online in built-up areas, especially. And let's try and encourage that not to happen.
People aren't going to go on, search online for people driving like idiots.
Yeah.
We're going to get loads of comments. Oh, you're going too fast.
Joe, look at this clip from 6 years ago. Yeah, there might be a few.
Hey, look, none of us are angels at all, and no. I think, I'll always say to people, especially if I'm driving a private owner's car. The other thing to touch on very briefly as well, and this is aimed directly at YouTubers and stuff, but when you see them driving other people's cars, not only sometimes the driving standard's not great, I also question what their insurance is like.
Yep.
Because I will put money on the fact I only know one YouTuber who has a completely business-related insurance policy that allows them to drive everything completely. I have one, but mine's not nearly as comprehensive as his. But that's I only know a couple of people who do that.
Yep.
And press cars are different because they're insured by the press. But the amount of YouTubers you see jumping in someone else's car, and you're like,
yeah, and that is the problem, isn't it? I mean, we both get offered lots and lots of really nice cars, viewers' cars, and it's always but I'm just taking it around the block. But the thing is, that's when most accidents happen, when you just take it around the block.
Yeah. I'm all right now. I think I'm now covered up to 150 grand on someone else's car, all fully comp, which is great.
Yeah.
But unless someone offers me, I don't drive a Valkyrie or something, maybe I'll be.
Then you might need to find some excess insurance.
Hey, we got any questions? Do we have any questions?
I think we might have had one or two that you found, but just before we go into the question, I just want to talk about something that I've discovered in my area, but not. So I live in Buckinghamshire, the place that has got the worst roads in the whole of the UK. Thank you very much for.
I think West Sussex is going to vie for that position,
really?
mate. Yeah,
I think they're all actually. Yeah, the whole of the UK is horrendous at the moment. But I've noticed just recently fuel prices. So we're sort of June time now. Diesel, and actually I noticed this in London the other day when we were at the bike shed show with Michelin. Diesel is suddenly cheaper than petrol.
What?
Yeah, but then on the way down here today, I noticed that around here in the Reading area, diesel's still 8 or 9 pence more expensive. So I'm not sure what's going on there, because that was my big point. And then I got here, I thought, oh, maybe it's just where we are. But
wow.
Yeah, but I saw it in London and I've seen it where we are.
Do you reckon they've bought too much diesel and are trying to get rid of it, maybe? Or...
Probably, yeah. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? It's get everyone out of diesel cars, and because apparently they're devil's work, and now make diesel cheap. It's like, yeah, get everyone in EVs, and then London are going to charge congestion based on weight, apparently.
Yeah.
So it's this isn't all about money, is it? No, surely not.
No.
But yeah, so that's just something I picked up on. So I'd like to hear in the comments if that's something that's happening in your area, wherever you are from.
I mean, this is probably subject in its own right, but the kind of price point where diesel's coming down to now,
yeah,
I don't know, let's say it's 145, maybe 150 pence a litre.
Yeah.
It's probably cheaper to run a diesel car than it is to fill up an EV at 75 pence per kilowatt hour.
100%, yeah.
If you're on Ionity and you've not got a deal,
yeah,
you're probably paying somewhere between 60 to 75 pence per kilowatt hour. It's probably cheaper to run a diesel car.
Wow.
That's
yeah.
Pretty scary, right?
It is scary. Yeah, no. So there you go. That's my little this tale from today.
Oh, you see, you just wanted to get some diesel in there, didn't you?
I just want to see, yeah. Anyone seen my 730D diesel video? London to Madrid. Amazing.
Have you done one of them? What was the fuel price like when you did that?
Actually, it was really high then, I think. It was like 180, 189 or something. So, but it was still massively cheap for that sort of length of journey.
Wow.
And before we get into questions, one more thing that I wanted to squeeze into this podcast is Camilla, who's a mutual friend of ours, works for Audi UK.
Yes.
Got married on the weekend, so congratulations to Camilla and Jack. But more importantly, sorry, Camilla, she had an Audi Quattro as her wedding car.
Mate, I've seen the pictures on that. It's the coolest wedding car because it was the cream coloured one from the Heritage collection.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's it's Alpine white actually. It looks cream because it's like a pearl finish.
Is that a 20 valve of that one?
20 valve. So it's an 89. It's one of the last, a very late one. 20 valve, 2.2.
I need to drive that because I got the 10 valve one. The
blue one. Is it? Yeah.
And I remember I got that, and I remember it being delivered, and it was one of the few press cars where I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go for a drive in that without any cameras. And I went out for about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Driving it around, and I got really emotional because that's a good car today, and it was a 1981. It was one of the first ever Quattros in the UK.
Yeah.
Awesome thing. But what an awesome wedding car.
Oh,
the driver was a bit dodgy, wasn't he?
Yeah, I don't know where she got that driver from.
No. Apparently Camilla knew a chauffeur that had done some chauffeuring in the past.
Used to chauffeur, now does the odd bit of YouTube.
Did they sit in the back?
They did. So yeah, cool story. So
because Audi Quattros aren't like that big in the back.
No, so it's run so that the actual Heritage, no, they don't call it Heritage, Cherish fleet they call it, Audi UK. So all their older cars, it's run looked after by this amazing place out near Milton Keynes, and the guys there decided to pull out the front passenger seat and clean all the rails and cover it with a lovely Audi matte. So Camilla was sitting in the back. Honestly, I mean, she had more legroom in the back there than you would in a 7 Series long wheelbase or an A8.
So was that the car to take her to the ceremony?
Yes,
not drive away, because I just got this vision of the magic couple in the back of her, crammed into the back
with the cans flying out the back. Yeah, no. So I took her and her father, Mike, there, and but it was really cool. It was just a really, we can all access a number of cars. You can hire pretty much everything, but choosing that for your wedding car is pretty gangster.
And she's worked at Audi for a while, right? So
she has, so it all worked out.
That's
it all worked out really well.
That is really cool.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was really good.
Well, yeah, congrats. By the time this goes out, they probably have done the honeymoon and everything now. But,
yeah, they would have done. Yeah. So,
oh, mate, well, that's probably a good place to finish the podcast on that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. On a positive note. But yeah, I think this has been really interesting for you and I. And as you say, there's so much to learn about driving that we should know a lot more about when we pass our tests.
Yeah.
Like everything in life, you just kind of move on and it gets put to the bottom of your pile, even if you want to learn more and become a better driver. But I think, yeah.
Well, I want to thank you actually for sharing that story, because it's a story that I've known and your close friends will have known for a while. But I know that it's not an easy subject to talk about in a forum that's as open and public as the podcast. So, if one person watching or listening to this takes something away from that in a positive way, then that's really cool. So yeah, superstar, mate. Thank you.
Oh, pleasure. No, it's nice to finally sort of start talking about it. I've not wanted to upset anyone or say the wrong thing. But at the same time, I think it's very important to talk about for good or for bad.
Yeah, in a positive way.
Yeah,
for sure. Anyway, that's the end. Is that how long we got? We've done an hour.
I think we are just over an hour. Yeah, pretty much bang on. I know we mentioned Michelin a couple of times throughout the podcast, but as always, massive shout out and thanks to Michelin. How do we say?
Oh yeah, sorry. Thank you for that. Actually, I got pulled up because of the way I say Michelin.
Okay. And you actually say it
Michelin.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so in England, in English, we would say Michelin.
Michelin.
And I grew up saying Michelin. Right?
Yeah.
But I actually do speak French, and I have lived in France, and it's Michelin. And I know you're nearly there.
I'm nearly there. Yeah.
Michelin.
Yeah. Michelin.
So the reason we say it like that is because that's how you're meant to say it. It's a French word and a French company. It's a bit like Citroën.
Yes.
Now, I know it sounds a bit douchey, but that's it's like my favourite one, actually. You can never...
Abarth. No.
Abarth.
Abarth.
Yeah, Abarth. Abarth, there's no th at the end, it's t at the end. Okay. Abarth. Lancia.
Oh, Lancia.
Yeah, Lancia.
Yeah.
My favourite one that always is Akrapovic.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variations there.
It's Akrapovic. Yeah. Just saying. It's not Akrapovic or Akrapovic. It's Akrapovic.
What about BMW?
I'm not very good with German accent.
BMW or something, isn't it?
I don't know, mate. I don't.
But, I mean, no, you just BMW. That was meant to be a joke, but it kind of fell flat.
Peugeot.
Oh, good one, Pat.
It's Porsche or Porsche from Pat.
It's Porsche.
Porsche, definitely. And it winds me up when people say Porsche.
Yes. I used to say Porsche.
It's Porsche.
Porsche.
Yeah.
I hope I said that in this morning's intro, Pat.
Maserati. I can't say... now I've hung around. I've done lots of stuff with Maserati before, so they are... Maserati. So you just sound like a pretentious idiot, but that's how... I can't help. That's how you're meant to say it.
No, yeah.
But it's Michelin.
Michelin.
Yeah.
Michelin.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Well, big thanks to those guys.
And Joe Achilles. I met someone once went, you know that Joe Achilles?
Yeah.
I'm like, who? Oh, you mean Joe Achilles? Oh, is that how you say it? Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Anyway.
Nice.
So if you've got any other words you'd like us to pronounce properly on the next podcast, put it in the comments. Before we go, make sure if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget, hit that subscribe button and like us and put comments and stuff. Notification bell.
Yeah.
And if you're listening on a podcast platform, if you can give us a rating, write a review, it helps so much. It pushes up those charts.
And it helps us. I've read lots of those reviews recently and they're great. It's really encouraging to read them.
We're still in the growth phase, so they're all quite positive still.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway.
We haven't quite cracked it.
Another couple of months, they'll be like, a bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll keep going on because we've been nearly an hour and 5 minutes now.
Yeah.
But we'll see on the next episode of the Drive Talk podcast.
Yeah. Easy now.